Welcome to this special webinar for International Day of the Girl Child, Girls as Agents of Change. I am Beverly Francis Gibson, the CEO of Together Women Rise. Thank you for joining us today for what I know will be an informative and inspiring discussion. Thank you to our Rise members in attendance, as well as guests and other attendees from our event partners. She's the First, Tomorrow's Women, and Youth Climate Justice Fund. We are all a part of a powerful community that shares the goal of more than just an equal world for girls and women globally. International Day of the Girl, which is officially observed tomorrow, October 11th, has been observed for the past 13 years to recognize the power of girls everywhere, and to highlight the unique challenges that they face, and to celebrate the progress that they make in addressing challenges that are important to girls' leadership and provide solutions. At Together Women Rise, we are dedicated to advancing global gender equality, and on this International Day of the Girl Child and every day, we are proud to amplify the voices of girls from around the world who are boldly taking action to shift discriminatory gender beliefs and practices and live to their fullest potential. So before we get started, just a few housekeeping reminders. We are using a webinar format today, which is a little different than our regular monthly webinars. So you will see and hear the speakers, but not the attendees. This will provide you with a better viewing experience and allow you to focus on our speakers. You can also communicate with us and other attendees through the chat function. Feel free to share where you are from and what questions you may have. And we have a full agenda today, but we are hoping that we can enjoy this session with you. The closed captioning feature has also been enabled for your use. So just go to the Zoom toolbar and click on Show Captions. And now, it is my pleasure to introduce you to Ariana Lee. We're going to kick off this webinar with a special treat. I am pleased to introduce Ariana Lee, who has written a poem specifically for today's event. Ariana is the 7th Houston Youth Poet Laureate and a 2-time member of the Metaphor Houston Youth Slam Poetry team. Ariana has opened for the U.S. Poet Laureate Ada Limon and performed original works for NASA, the NCAA, Aspen Institute, and the Houston's Mayor's Office. And she is an undergraduate student at Stanford University. Ariana, thank you for sharing your creative talents with us today. Take it away.
Hello, everybody. This poem is titled Together We Rise. There's the language that people speak around you, and then there's the language you inherit as a girl. The silent meeting of the eyes across a stuffy room, a small nod of reassurance, and open hands to hold. But I dream of the day when we won't need a silent language of solidarity, a day when the whole room leans in to hear what we have to say. This current system, designed without us, cannot be the system for us, because women still go missing without a trace. Think how many fists have struck my sisters like lightning, burned their faces like a forest fire, left them trembling in the aftershocks. How many of our mothers and grandmothers gave up too much for our sake? How many of our sisters suffer in silence? How many of us aren't believed? How many of us hide bruises or hide dreams? There are too many girls hidden away for us to hide from ourselves. We can do more than inherit a silent language and act on it. For people of all genders in all our communities, we become the words confident and leader. We fight for our bodies, our rights, our education, our health, our wealth, our independence, our planet, our safety, our homes, our hope, and our hope. What an honor it is to hold each other, to hope for each other and our visions for the future. So when people talk about developing countries with elitism and condescension, let them hear us girls talk about developing countries. We are the builders. My mother has not opened doors. She has torn them off their hinges, taken a hammer to the wall, turned iron bars into scrap metal. The strength in my fist is from every woman before me. The length of my stride is for every woman after. We are not the printed perfection of Barbies and dolls. We are flesh and muscle, beating in bold hearts, heads filled with ideas, bodies filled with possibilities. Don't tell me that to be a girl has to do with manners or mistakes or men. No, to be a girl is to learn how to be the wind that bends the grass, the moon that calls the water back. We are the forces that move this world, and we move together. At sunrise, we rise, and at sunset, we set plans for the next day. We build our way. We will achieve new firsts until the only thing that lasts is our legacy. Thank you.
Woo-wee. I have to applaud you, Ariana. That was fantastic, fantastic, and very inspiring. Thank you so much for sharing your gifts and your talents with us. And your poetry was actually very appropriate for today's discussions. We are going to hear from 4 amazing young women who are joining us today to share their stories of leadership in the areas of peace building, climate justice, and gender-based violence. I am going to introduce each of them very briefly, but I encourage you to visit our website, togetherwomenrise.org, to read more about their full bios and to learn about them. My first panelist is Ariadna Beneventi. She is with She's the First, and she is a First Activist Fellow and a member of the Girl Advisory Council. She's the First as a Together Women Rise grantee that we are featuring throughout the month of October. Adriana's goal is to promote youth participation in activities and decision-making spaces to eradicate gender-based violence. We have another Rise grantee represented today, Ya'ara Tal and Amal from Tomorrow's Women. Tomorrow's Women trains young women from Palestine, Israel, and the United States to be strong, compassionate leaders who form partnerships across borders to resolve conflicts and inspire action that promotes equality, peace, and justice for all. Ya'ara grew up in the kibbutz Doret in the southern part of Israel next to Gaza. Amal is an entrepreneur, community facilitator, and advocate for women's rights from Gaza. I want to make you aware that we will not be sharing Amal's last name or video for safety and security reasons. And finally, we have Nakabuye Hilda Flavia, who goes by Hilda. Hilda is a climate and gender environmental rights advocate from Uganda. To moderate our panel discussion, I am pleased to introduce my friend, Jasmine Anouna. Jasmine is the CEO of The Bloom, which is one of the largest learning platforms in the world of social impact careers. Jasmine is an Italian, Egyptian, American impact entrepreneur, and she's driven by a passion for deep listening and building bridges across ideas, people, and culture. For Jasmine, her focus is on diversity and the intersectionality in social impact, and she is an influencer. I consider her to be an influencer of over 45,000 impact professionals around the world. She was officially welcomed in 2002 to the prestigious Goalkeepers community of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. It is my pleasure to turn the program over to you, Jasmine.
Thank you so much, Beverly. I love your energy so much from the day we met, and I'm just very happy to be here. I'm happy to be here for the celebration. I'm happy to listen to all of your stories. And without further ado, I have my first question. Ariadna, I'd love to start with you. In 2022, when you were a 19-year-old student and an activist in Chile, you founded the NGO Intransigence. This organization empowers and trains youth to be change makers and promoters of life without gender-based violence. Can you share your story of how you came to create the NGO and also why you care so much about ending gender-based violence?
Hello, everyone. I'm sorry. Well, I was actually 17 in 2022, and now I'm 19. And that year was when I found my NGO called Intransigentes. Well, throughout my entire and short life of 19 years old now, I have witnessed multiple cases of violence and threats in schools here in Chile. And even when I was younger, I didn't want to simply ignore it and not to do anything to address this situation. And during the pandemic, I began to research cases of gender-based violence and also domestic violence. And at the time, when those cases increased dramatically, and well, during those evenings doing this kind of research, I realized that throughout my education, I had never been or received any opportunities to learn about gender violence that occurs in homes, in schools, or in romantic relationships. And this realization prompted me to dig deeper and analyze some of the root causes, the impacts, the solutions to gender violence. Then I saw the opportunity to raise awareness among my peers using a free gender biases and emotional approach to educate young people about gender-based violence. And that is why at the age of 17, I found my NGO that is called Intransigentes, like intransigents in English, that you cannot accept by any chance gender violence. And this is an NGO that promotes a life free from gender-based violence to girls, boys, non-binary people, transgender people, and teenagers. The amazing part of my NGO is that teens are the change makers. Throughout my NGO programs, we provide training by professionals from the fields of psychological first aid so that teenagers can recognize the signs of gender-based violence, how to help someone during a panic attack or something, and also play a role in preventing its occurrence in schools, learn about the legal procedures, and become a part of a larger community, creating a long-lasting change. And you may be wondering why teenagers are leading teams. Isn't this a job for adults? And well, that is not completely true because peer bonding is a powerful tool in many learning spaces during life. For instance, when your mom gives you an advice and you may or may not accept it, but if your best friend gives you the same advice, it makes you much more sense and you are far more willing to consider making a change. Well, also peer bonding is crucial to creating a space of trust. I have been able to see how many teens and youth at school open up and tell their stories regarding gender-based violence. And my volunteers' lives also have improved since they began sharing their stories and experience. And for closing, it has been incredible to see how connecting with peers makes such a great impact on their lives, and promoting awareness about gender-based violence and how to prevent it has been a profoundly and meaningful experience for me and for the entire community. And I have received precious feedback from peers, school principals, and government authorities here in Chile and in other Latin American countries. Yeah.
Muchísimas gracias. Fue súper interesante escucharte. It was very interesting, especially what you said about why teenagers, ¿sabes? And that peer bonding. I think that's so important. So congratulations on facilitating and leading this work. So let's move on to Hilda. You founded Fridays for Future in Uganda, which is a youth-led and organized global climate strike movement. Every Friday, you work towards building a safer and healthier environment by rallying governments, corporate organizations, and communities to take climate action. You've also led shore cleanup at Lake Victoria, empowering lakeshore communities to learn how to protect lakes and fight against plastic pollution. Can you share also your story of how you became an environmental activist and why you care so much about protecting the environment?
Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. As introduced, my name is Hilda, and I'm from Uganda, a country that contributes less than 0.02% global carbon emissions, and it ranks as the 36th most vulnerable country to the impacts of climate change. I grew up on a farm, and I faced the effects of climate change firsthand when weather patterns changed, flooded our roads, mudslides. Our plantation was destroyed by these heavy rains. It made it very hard for transportation or movement from one place to another because the roads were flooded. And this also kept me from attending school. What was once a reliable planting season turned out into a guessing game of whether.
Hilda, are you still with us? Did she drop off?
I think I may have lost her for the moment. She was experiencing some issues. Sorry.
Okay.
Maybe she'll log back in soon.
Can you hear?
There we go.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry about that. My internet is really bad. I'm in a foreign country, but I hope it gets better. So I grew up on a farm facing all these effects of climate change, which limited my education and which limited my involvement in farming or plantation, which was the main activity or even the main source of income that my family had. We are farmers, and all that I knew was growing crops on the plantation. But after it was devastated by the heavy rains, we lost most of our land, we lost all the crops, and this made adverse. I remember asking my grandmother during this time what was happening to our farm, and she told me we were being cursed by the gods. So I asked her, how can the gods curse us when we haven't done anything wrong? And she told me that is the way it is. But she told me this because she didn't have knowledge or information about climate change. And I grew up with the same narrative that the gods had cursed us, and so we lost our plantation and our livelihoods. And when I joined university, I learned about climate change in a youth dialogue that I attended. And the main reason as to why I went for this youth dialogue was to get food. So a friend of mine invited me to this event, telling me that, come, there's food at this event, because he knew that I didn't have food to eat that day. So I went to this youth dialogue thinking that I'm going to get food, but I got food, but I also got climate knowledge. This was the first time I heard about climate information, and it opened my eyes to the reality of what my community was passing through, what experiences I passed through growing up. It opened me to the reality of what is happening in the world, global emissions, huge polluters, solutions to climate change, the role of youth, the role of policymakers, and all this information about climate change really opened me up and helped me to start my activism, because at that point, I promised myself that I will create climate awareness so that other girls don't have to pass through the same experience I passed through growing up. They don't have to miss their school, they don't have to miss a meal and things like that. So I started a movement, Fridays for Future movement here in Uganda, spreading climate awareness to schools, to communities, to people. We held climate strikes every other Friday, even until now, to create climate awareness to the general public, to influence decisions, to influence policy, to empower women to join leadership positions, to take up leadership roles. And at the moment, the Fridays for Future movement in Uganda has a network of about 53,000 students and youth. And we work in 71 communities in Uganda. and we have a network of 5 universities. And we've also been able to support other Fridays for Future groups in Africa to start their own chapters, like Kenya, Nigeria, Sierra Leone, Zambia, Namibia, South Africa. So that is my story. Thank you.
Thank you, Hilda. Wow. First of all, I'm so glad that we were able to listen to you despite the internet connectivity. I know this is a very global group, so I'm sure there's like lots of patience, but you said something that I think is so beautiful, where you do what you do so that other girls don't have to live through the same things that you did. And I think so much of, I don't know if you touched on this, but I feel so much of what you're doing, it's rewriting the narrative, of rewriting the stories for others so that they have that expansiveness and that possibility to just be at peace in a way that you were not able to. So I admire this so much. You're shifting so many narratives. I can't even remember how many human, there's like 50,000 people. It's amazing. So congratulations on all of your work. Thank you. Ya'ara, you joined Tomorrow's Women in 2008, where you were awarded a scholarship at the University of Oregon, where you majored in international studies. You're a project manager at the Perez Center for Peace and Inclusion, in leading the Service of Peace program, which brings together Jewish Israelis and Palestinians on a football pitch to develop leadership, team building, and conflict management skills. Why did you get involved with Tomorrow's Women, and what makes you continue on in your peace building efforts?
Thank you, everyone, by the way. First of all, for sharing everyone's story. It's really, really interesting. I'll divide my answer to two. First, joining Tomorrow's Women as a teenager. I grew up in a kibbutz near the Gaza Strip. So I've experienced rockets falling around me from a young age, all the time, at school, at home, in my community. And I was always very interested to meet people from the other side. I only saw it in the form of rockets, and I wanted to see who are the civilians who live in Gaza. I want to ask them just curious questions of like what they do in life and how their life look like in Gaza, because I know it's very different from the environment where I grew up. So it's mainly the curiosity, I think, that pushed me to join Tomorrow's Women. And when I got to the camp in the US where we meet, unfortunately, I didn't meet any girl from the Gaza Strip because they couldn't come, but I met girls from the West Bank, which is also a region that I'm not allowed to visit as an Israeli citizen. Legally, I'm not allowed to get in. So it was the first time for me to meet people from the other side, Palestinians, and hear their stories. And I think during the camp, we realized that we share a lot of like same interests as teenagers, like music and boys and all that. And I think it really made me even more curious to like create friendships and bonds with girls. And I didn't see them as Palestinians. I saw them as for example, Majdal and Muna, which are two Palestinian girls that I became friends with. And I met Amira as well through the program. She was in a camp a few years before me. So I got the chance to meet a lot of girls and see them as human beings, and not as like as a person who is part of the conflict, just as a human being like me, who is sharing a lot of similar things. My second part of the question is, I think that as Amal said, October 7th influenced us in a very difficult way. Her community, her family, and my community and my family. I was not in Israel actually when it happened, but I got a phone call in the morning telling me that like I slowly started to hear names and get the news of people that I know from school and people that I know that were murdered. Sorry. And I couldn't do anything about it, and it made me feel hopeless. And I think now we had the anniversary for like 1 year since October 7th happened, and I think things just got even worse. And I know also personally some of the hostages as well that are still in Gaza. Sorry. And what pushed me, I took a bit of a break from the peace work, and I did some other stuff. And I think what brought me back to this work and work at the Paris Peace Center now is, I think October 7th made me realize that there is no other choice. Like, if we will not make peace, if we will not get into agreement, even if it's a cold peace, this will happen again. I mean, more people will die, more people will get hurt, more families will break apart, and it's really, I mean, it sounds maybe like a cliche, but peace is the only solution, whether you like it or not. And I think that's what pushed me to come back to the peace field and work for it. And right now I'm working with kids, so maybe it's also a bit easier, because I think kids are more optimistic, and kids maybe give you a bit more hope. And I think it's also it's easier to change their mind or maybe open their mind than someone who is adult already. So yeah, for me, I think that's why I feel like that's kind of like my passion right now. But also, with the current reality and the situation in the region, I cannot lie that a lot of days I feel very down, and I feel like there is no chance for peace, and I feel like, what am I even doing? But I think doing nothing makes me even more like depressed or hopeless than doing something that maybe I don't see the results right now. So for me, it's like I prefer to do something and be an activist in my own way. And I think, yeah, that's the one thing that keep me sane, I don't know, in this world a bit. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And I think something that I guess I would offer to see is like how I think it's a beautiful thing when we acknowledge that our activism also can change with time and with our current inner like capabilities. And I think it's very brave of you to acknowledge that and to be true to yourself and to have gone through the shifts that you did, but still taking action. Thank you so much for sharing more of your story. I'm going to move on to just actually an open question for all of our wonderful panelists. Some of you touched briefly on them, but I do want to ask you a bit more to just go more into the depth of the challenges that each of you have faced on your leadership journey. Ariadna, por favor, si quieres.
Okay. Well, I can mainly say that adult-centrism and intergenerational taboos have been the primary barriers to advancing the work for the eradication of gender violence, because many adults think that we are brainwashing the children and adolescents to learn about bodily autonomy, preventing violence in relationships, learning about comprehensive sex education, etc. And they claim their children are too young or that they will teach them at home. Well, but we can't ensure that they are teaching them properly and not telling them that the babies come from storks or seeds, especially since many children, when they begin pre-adolescence, they secretly start watching adult content, which is concerning and which distorts their minds. Sorry. And they also believe that young people like us shouldn't be talking to our peers about these topics because we are unprepared. And this is the job of psychologists and teachers. And well, moreover, the selfishness of many authorities or other organizations has been another barrier. This is more like an ego issue because they want to stand out, steal our projects, or create obstacles to our work.
In our region, it's an endless cycle. It feels like I don't feel like there is hope right now to my country, to my region, with the current government, with the reality. Is just, I don't see how things turn to be better in the near future. So it takes a lot of energy, a lot of hopes, And it's a real challenge for myself. And especially like, as I said before, like the community where I grew up is not going to be the same as it was. It's also a challenge for me. My home doesn't feel safe. I mean, never felt super safe with the rockets, but it's definitely different now after 7th of October. So I think for me, that's the biggest challenge. And I think also another challenge, I don't know if it's even bigger, but I think a lot of my close friends and even family members everyone changed here in Israel after 7th of October. And I think it's more difficult sometimes to talk about peace and like having any contact with Palestinians, with people around you. A lot of people got hurt, a lot of people lost people they love. So it's more difficult to do something about it or like share your belief. And I told my friends as well and people who are close to me that if something would have happened to my personal family during 7th of October, I don't know if I could have been here or could have still been an activist. Like it's really hard. And I don't blame people for, choosing to go another way if they go through tragedy, a personal tragedy like that. And I think, yeah, it's a big challenge. Like even if I didn't lose someone from my family, I lost a lot of people that I know, and it influenced a lot, and it's really hard to stay positive and stay in this field.
Thanks for sharing on my side. It's mostly it's not very different from what Amal, Ya'ara, and Ariana have said or have shared. Personally, I was rejected, excluded by my family when I joined climate activism. When I started striking on the streets, there was a lot of criticisms that came from people from the community about how I am a woman, how I shouldn't be standing on the streets, how I shouldn't talk to my elders about climate change because I was considered less knowledgeable because of my age and my gender. And this was a huge challenge in the work that I was doing. And I remember sharing with my university professor about my activism and asking him if I can be off every Friday to do the climate awareness and the climate strikes. And he said that I'm just a little girl. There's nothing I can do to change or to combat the climate crisis. And this was really affected me because I had so much hope in him. I thought he was knowledgeable and in a better decision-making position to allow me pursue this. And another challenge I faced is security and safety. I come from Uganda and we have a repressed civic space. So every time we hold actions, we are either arrested, detained, threatened. Some of my fellows have been kidnapped. I've been arrested a couple of times just for speaking up and fighting for justice. And the story goes on. At worst, you're killed, just like many other human rights or environmental defenders around the world. Another challenge that I've seen in my line is racism and discrimination. Of course, based on color, status, location, and also that includes access to materials or information or media spaces or even just training spaces for leadership. It's always hard for people from the Global South to get such spaces or such expertise or such knowledge and information. And the other challenge since I started the climate movement has been access to resources. Of course, this also comes from the point that I come from the Global South, and there are a lot of security issues and registration of organizations. Sometimes it's because you don't know the right people or you don't even have access to the right people. So those are some of the challenges on my side.
Thank you all for sharing. I want to be conscientious of time, and I want to offer more space for probably the most important question that I think I will ask you, which is, with all of these difficulties that each of you are facing, we have 82 people listening to this Zoom call. We don't know who's in the room. Sorry, wish we could see all of your faces. But I've been reading your comments in the chat, and I will tell you there's so much solidarity, and I'm sure that many people are not just here to listen, but to really take action. So my question for all of you is, with all of the difficulties that you're facing, please take up space. I mean, really, take up as much space. I wish this were like a 2-hour panel, but to ask for support. What are some of the specific ways that people, all 82 people, including myself, what are the ways that we can help you and your organizations and your causes?
Can I start?
Go for it.
Okay.
Go for it, sorry.
It's okay. So the best way to support me and the organization or the people from the community that I work with is networks, connection, and funding. Recommendation to, for example, financial support, because we have projects going on. We know the problem, we have the solution, but we don't have the funds to move the solutions. Thank you.
Thank you, Hilda. Ariadna, pienso que tú tenías la mano, ¿verdad?
Yeah.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. I think that we must continue promoting girls' empowerment programs that are crucial to develop the girls, or girls can develop more ethical ways to talk and offer them opportunities to raise their voice, such as She's the First Fellowship. I'm the first Latina and Chilean to be part of the fellowship, where we are sought to be ethical and create professional change makers, who can build campaigns that positively impact the community and girls. And by participating in these kind of initiatives, like She's the First, we not only develop leadership skills, but we also strengthen the global movement for gender equality. And working together through networks like She's the First or Together Women Rise allows us to amplify our voices and share resources to make long-lasting and impactful change. And it's no longer about one generation over another. It's about coming together, sharing knowledge, and fighting for a better future for girls and everywhere. And working in networks is essential to strengthen and amplify our voices. Enough of intergenerational fights and trying to convince which generation is more right than another, and it's time to unify and fight together. Only by bridging the gaps between generations and joining forces can we create a lasting change. And together we can build a world where every girl is empowered, heard, and protected, because the fight for gender equality needs all of us.
Thank you. Ya'ara, Amal?
I can start. I think everyone can say the same, that financial support will be helpful for all of us, I think, for our project. I mean, for me, I know that the financial support that I got from Tomorrow's Women changed my life. As you mentioned before, Jasmine, in the introduction, I got a full scholarship to go to the beginning community college, and then I graduated from a university in the US, and it's an experience that I would have never imagined I could do. Obviously, it's super expensive to go to college in the States, and I did it alongside with a Palestinian partner who also attend Tomorrow's Women in a different year, and together we gave public speaking to the communities around. We went to Oregon, so we went for public speaking also in the West Coast, and people heard our stories, and I think it changed a lot of people's mind. We talked to the students as well on campus, and a lot of them never met Israeli or Palestinian, so they were able to hear both of the narratives, and I think it was super meaningful for them. And obviously for both of us, it's changed our life. So that, for example, of how financial support can change people's life and make a change. I would also say that giving us opportunities like today, even to share our stories and introducing ourselves, but also like the organization that we're really working with or part of or the founder of, I think it gives a stage that we all need. And I think that, sorry if I'm a little biased, but the stories like me and Amal, what we are doing right now, I think a lot of people around the world in the media don't hear these kind of voices during this time especially. And I think it's really special also for us to feel that people want to listen to us and that there is space for our voice. And also, for me, it gives me always, like, after I'm doing this kind of a talk, it gives me hope and gives me good energy that people want to listen to me and that, you know, I'm not doing something that is, it's always hard to stay hopeful because I don't see the results of the work that I do right now. I mean, I feel like, I don't know if I'll see the result of the work that I'm doing in a way that, I mean, maybe small ones, but we hope for a bigger change. And I think that this kind of an event is a great opportunity for me to share my story and also to hear from people as well. Yeah, I get inspired also from the stories of Ariadna and Hilda, what they do in other parts of the world that are really far from me. So it's really, really amazing.
Many of you have been sharing how inspiring it is to listen to these stories, and I encourage every single person that said the bravery and the inspiration to take that and those comments and take action, like taking action. And I know that you've all shown up, which is the first action, to listen, which is so beautiful because I feel the energy of this room, and I'm sure there's been so much active listening. And I will recap some of the ways that we can take action. So funding, financial resources and donations, networks to join. Think about what are the networks around you that could be meaningful, like Together Women Rise, for some of these young women to join. Opportunities to develop leadership skills, opportunities for visibility, give these incredible leaders a stage, and no stage is too small, also, I want to add, and also to help women and activate them in local communities. So these are all things. I want to go back to what Ya'ara mentioned. Sorry, I think it was Amal, one of you, about everyday peace builders. I think Amal, it was you, like that was talking about how we don't, peace building is not for the high level rooms. We can all be peace builders. So I do want to hold on to these words of Amal and take action in that way. And I will pass it over to Beverly, I think, for Q&A.
Yes, thank you so much to all of you. This has been so inspiring and an incredible hour for us to just listen to each of your stories, the bravery that you've shared, the transparency that you've shared, and how hard this work is. I have to thank moderator Jasmine for doing an incredible job of coalescing the conversation with our panelists. Together Women Rise is inspired every single day by all of you. And I want to thank you for being a part of this panel and sharing your stories with us. Give to Women and Girls Day coincides really greatly with the International Day of the Girl Child, which is part of the reason why we're doing our program today. And this is a national campaign to raise awareness and to increase funding for organizations supporting women and girls. And Together Women Rise is proud to be a partner, an anchor partner. So tomorrow in New York, the actual live stream event is happening. And we will post in the chat the link if you would like to register and be a part of this global initiative in New York. Additionally, Together Women Rise is launching our 2024 annual appeal tomorrow with a special double your donation giving opportunity. So thanks to several generous donors, every donation between now and October 31st will be matched up to $100,000. This is unheard of. And it is a wonderful opportunity for us to show our support for Hilda and Adriana and Amal and Ya'ara. And don't forget about our partners and the incredible work that they do every single day. She's the First, Tomorrow's Women Youth Climate Justice Fund. Please consider supporting them and Together Women Rise as you think about ways to move the needle forward for women and girls. I have to thank our communication staff, Sarah, Wendy, for an incredible job, and thank all of you for joining us today, and happy International Day of the Girl.